Meeting to order, missing Mr. Reuter, but I believe he'll be here in a few minutes. First item on the agenda is September 28 minutes. Any changes, Reese?
I have none.
I was thinking, no.
No, you're good. All right. Stand as written. Next item on the agenda is citizen comments on non-agenda items. You guys want to talk? No. Just give me an opportunity. So. Next item on the agenda, consent agenda. First one would be a letter of support for Rural Housing Incentive District, the Depot Place. It's a letter of support to Michael Graham's request for the Rural Housing Incentive District. Pretty much straightforward. And then mayor appointment to the CVB Advisory Committee.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Cunningham. Any comments? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda, Heart of America Rural Housing Incentive District Project Update. And who is talking? Doug Williams. Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon. Doug Williams, Executive Director of Grow Hayes. Also in the audience today, I would note, is Chris Sook, who is the current president of Heart of America Development Corporation. It's been a while since I've come forth and at least addressed you officially in terms of an update on this project, and I thought it would be a good time to do so because we've got a lot of good things to talk about, I think. And so you can drive out there and see the activity, but there's some numbers behind the activity that I think are relevant too, and that you might have some interest in. So you might recall, some of you are on the commission at this time, and in 2020, you all approved a rural housing incentive district, the first one in the city of Hayes, I believe. And on June 27th, that was officially approved. So it feels like a long time ago. It really wasn't all that long ago, but it sure feels like a long time. The infrastructure for the project, it was just a greenfield at the time that the project was approved for a rural housing incentive district. The infrastructure was started in the fall of 2020. Completed in August of 2021, and the first building permit was issued on, according Curtis told me the other day, September 1st of 2021. So in the last 24 months, which is roughly what it's been since construction was started, 3 builders have completed 36 homes that are now completed and occupied, 19 by Homes by Cornerstone, which is Kelly Kinke's company, 12 by Platinum Builders, which is Adam Prey and David Spady's company, and 5 by Paul Wurtenberger, PwC Inc. And there are currently 14 homes under construction in what we're calling Phase 2. I would estimate there'll be 4 additional starts. There were 18 lots in Phase 2, 14 are under construction. Kelly Kinke owns the other 4 lots, and he tells me he's going to start construction sometime in the next 30 to 45 days. If you haven't been out there, this gives you a little bit of feel of what it looks like. People are starting to put in their yards, and it's really starting to look like a neighborhood. Other than this area where there's lots of weeds and lots of construction going on, but that's the nature of the beast there. 44 of the homes are sold to date. I mentioned the 36 in Phase 1. Those are all sold and occupied. 8 of them in the next phase are actually sold already. And actually, in talking to Kelly, he indicated to me the other day that all 9 of the homes he's working, 5 that he has started and the 4 that he doesn't have started, he calls it spoken for. He doesn't like to enter into a contract before he is a certain ways along, because then it turns into a custom home job, and it's not much fun for a contractor to do custom homes when they're not geared up to do that. Of those 44 that I mentioned, 20 were first-time buyers. 13 were new people to our community. 7 people were upsizers or downsizers. They either moved up from a house they had here or they moved down from a house they had here. 4 were sold to investors. And I might note on that investor deal, we did not restrict the type of, I get it all the time, well, they're income qualified homes, or they have to be owner occupied and that kind of thing. That's not the case. We never restricted that. We made about 4 or 5 conditions. They had to be at least 1,000 square feet. They had to have a 2-car garage. If they were a slab home, they had to have a safe room. Those were basically the only conditions we put on anybody. So some have sold to investors. That's important too because that provides housing for our community. Not everybody wants to buy, and so that fills a need as well because you're not going to finding anything to rent in this town is a challenge. Finding a house to rent, particularly a new house, just that opportunity doesn't even exist. So that's where we are, where we've been. Phase 3, which is along Wheatland Drive, that's the entrance into NCK. The city approved a overlay project that we could build the project with an overlay, widening the street and putting curb and gutter on the east side only, not on the side that along NCK Tech. And that will produce, on that deal, there's 12 lots that are 86 feet wide. The lots in the first 2 phases, actually 3 phases, are 62 feet wide. So this offers some opportunity for a little bit larger home. And a month or 2 ago, Heart of America entered into an agreement with Homes by Cornerstone to sell all 12 of those lots in exchange for him committing to build 12 homes and pull 12 permits in a 12-month period of time and price those homes at $325 or less. Now, the first 2 phases, phase 1, they had to be $225 or less. Phase 2, they had to be $235 or less. We had about a $7,000 increase per lot in the cost of development, so we had to raise the price of the lot. Consequently, we had to raise the developers had to, or the builders had to raise the price on to the homeowners. So $225 in phase 1, $235 in phase 3, or phase 2, and then $325 in this phase. So it'll be a little bit larger home, which we feel like there's a gap right now, and it goes from about $225 or $235 up to like $450, and in the new home market. So we feel like there's a pretty good market there that needs to be filled, and Kelly's agreed to go ahead and fill that.
So on those 12 homes, he's going to cap it at 325?
That's correct. They'll probably, because they're 86 feet, you can't put a 3-car garage on a 62-foot lot, but you can on an 86-foot lot. So he will cap that at 325 and agrees to get them built, which is a key component of an RHID, is that you have to get the property built so you can start collecting increment on the property taxes. This demonstrates the 3 phases. Phase 3 that I just mentioned is right along here, these 12 lots. This is the street that goes into NCK right now, 22nd Street down here. Beyond that, phase 4, what I'll call, is about a year to a year and a half ago, Heart of America bought the 21 acres to the north of this development, again from the Lusk family. And I'll make a note here, the Lusk family has been very cooperative and very amenable to sell that land at a price that you can make this kind of thing work at. Hayes, we all know how Hayes land prices are. They're crazy. It becomes very difficult to make things work. They have been more than fair on the pricing they've been willing to offer. Heart of America bought that 21 acres. It will allow for roughly 75 lots in total. We're kind of looking at a 41 lot next phase. Look at it. There's no real time frame established for that. It would look something like this. This is the first 3 phases right now. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. This is what we're kicking around as phase 4.
Do you anticipate that being 325 area?
No, I'd anticipate going back more to that 235 type range. The only reason we went to 325 on the Wheatland Drive homes is because the lots are larger, and we felt like we had a niche that is a little bit missing, but we find a lot more demand in those 235 range, or let's say sub 250.
So once you build up from 22nd all the way up to I-70 there,
Yes,
how many lots is that total?
150, give or take. We're not 100% sure what what we're calling the North 21, where you see that red square, and then above that, we don't know exactly what this is an artist rendition. Once you get an engineer in there and he tells you how much you have to have for flood retention and water retention, that kind of thing, things can change. But ballpark, there were 75 roughly in phase 1, and there'll be 70, or in the first RHID district, and then they'd be roughly about 75 in the next area to the north, all the way to the interstate.
Thank you.
some lessons learned. We went into this. I certainly didn't know what I was doing. Fortunately, staff knows what they're doing and things, but it truly has met the need of the community. We called it workforce housing. People who own homes are more likely to stay in a community. And of the 44 we identified, 20 being first-time home buyers and 13 moving into our community. The vast majority of those are young people, initial homeowners, that kind of thing. We've got a good mix out there. We've got some retirees. We've got different ages. But by and large, those are people who are in our workforce, and when they buy a home, they're more likely to stay here. In addition, those 7 upsizers and downsizers I mentioned, they also had homes that they sold, and sometimes there were 2 or 3, the domino effect, where they sell their house, somebody buys it and sells their house, and somebody buys that, and so we had a lot of that going on. So I'd say of those 7 resales or upsizers or downsizers, probably 10 to 15 other homes sold because of that. So as I look back, I think, where would we be as a community had this not occurred? And I think it's made a major impact in our community. We have to be very thankful to Heart of America for being able to do that. Chris is here. He can't take all the credit, but he will. But they were a commercial developer. This is outside of their comfort zone, not something that they really had done, but they agreed to step up and take some of their dollars and invest it in this. So we owe them a debt of gratitude, and the same on the builders. It's very tough times to build homes. We have a lot of we have a shortfall of subcontractors, materials sometimes you can't get. I know for 6 months, Kelly was waiting on showers. I mean, there's just a number of things that stand in the way of being efficient in building this, but these guys have really stepped up. The other thing is, from what I see, I know interest rates have gone up, and I know if you watch the news, they tell you how terrible things are. Not here. There is strong demand for these homes. It continues to be very strong. The fact that they're selling these quicker than they can build them, and it really hasn't backed off thus far, I think says a lot about the level of demand there is for this type of housing. The other thing that I've learned kind of the hard way is development takes a long, long time. So, this was 2 years from the time they started the negotiating for the land to the time they had streets in and could do something. And as I look forward, that's why I'm always talking about what's next, because we have to get out in front of this if we can, and because it does take a long, long time. RHIDs are a great tool, but the current pay-as-you-go policy that is in place with the city is self-limiting. And what I mean by that is a developer comes in and they pay for all of this infrastructure, and yes, they get their money back, but they have to wait 25 years to get all their money back. Well, how many developments can they do waiting 25 years to get their money back? Particularly a not-for-profit who is not building in a lot of profit in the sale of the lot. They sold these first 36 lots for $10,000 each. They sold the next 18 at $15,000 each. Their cost in these lots was in excess of $40,000 if you had what it cost them to put in the infrastructure, acquire the land, and that kind of thing. So it's a losing proposition for them until they get that money back, and they have to wait a long time to do that. And so trying to convince them that they should go on and do this next step is difficult to do because they've exhausted their resources on the first 2 developments, on the first 2 phases. And that's where I say not-for-profits cannot fund ongoing development while waiting 20 years for a return on investment. So I'm going to be back in front of you in the coming months talking about different ideas as to how we keep this momentum going, because I think we have to look at some different ways of doing things if we want to keep this type of development going. Questions?
Doug, I had questions. Thank you for what you're doing. I mean, we started talking about this, and to build that many houses in that short amount of time, I think is huge for our community, and I want more. And I know I probably want more than we can do and stuff. But, I know I'd talked to you about like the investors, rentals or whatever. that concerned me. But then when you start talking to the builders, some of those people that are renting them are doctors that are here for a limited amount of time and stuff like that. So to me, that makes sense. And it's working exactly what you said. We have people downsizing, people upsizing. We have people that are having their firstborn child moving into those houses. That's exactly what we wanted. It's workforce housing. Those are the people that make our community go. So I think it's great. I'm concerned when you say we can't continue to do it the way we're doing the pay-as-you-go. I hope you bring something back sooner than later, and we can maybe make some changes to get it going faster, because we can't wait. I mean, if we wait, it's just going to slow everything down. We're back to where we were. But do you know of any other communities our size doing what we're doing the way you've done this?
Well, I think Dodge City does this in that manner. I mean, they've got a lot of construction activity going on, and they're a little different than us in that they have a developer who not only develops but he builds. So he's got it from kind of soup to nuts, and so he buys the land, sees that the streets get put in, then they build the houses and then sells them, and so it's a little different situation, because you can count. They know that they have to build those houses to get that increment put in place so they recover their costs. Sure. Whereas this, we have to get a group of builders together and try and get them to commit to certain things. But Dodge is doing this, and then Salina is doing some of this. So other communities are actively engaged in this same type of development.
Well, thank you for doing it, and thank you to the builders, because I know they put a lot of time and really not making as much as they normally would on building houses. So I think it's great for the community.
Right.
Thank you.
Doug has to listen to me regularly how important I think Tallgrass is to this community, and I want to see a lot more of it. I haven't had the opportunity to, in person, thank the Heart of America team. Doug did some great stuff with negotiating on land prices. When he told me what we was able to negotiate on that land, I thought there must have been a gun involved, but I don't think there was. But to get the Heart of America to understand, to step out of their commercial world and into the residential world and understand that was the need of this community, that was huge, Chris, and I want to personally thank you. Now, please carry that back to your board for me. Without you guys, it wouldn't happen, and I'm sure we'll find the next piece that will allow us to take that next step. Doug's probably got it all written out, just he hasn't decided when he's going to talk about it yet. But thank you to Grow Hayes, and the Grow Hayes team is just not enough. I mean, what's happening is unbelievable, and I don't see it slowing down at all. So thank you all. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that you build them and they're sold before they're finished being built just shows what the need has been for them. And it also shows that it's a good investment, because you're not taking a lot of chances because they're selling that fast. So it's a big need, but it's also a great investment, and it's very appreciative of being able to pull all of the disparate people that have to get together to make it happen. So, and look forward to seeing a lot more of it in the future.
Like Commissioner Barrick said, not only just a great investment for the city, but for our community as a whole, creating that housing, trying to fill that void that we have. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah, Doug, I mean, you and your team have been absolutely amazing since I came on in 2020 through COVID to go through this project, and Heart of America, absolutely phenomenal to just, not just attack a housing need, but almost specific needs across the whole gamut of housing is crazy to happen in that short period of time and whatnot. And I'm glad you're looking at the future part of it, of how can we do this even quicker. And it's probably going to take some give and take between developers in the city in the future of different options of investment we take. But I don't think there's a better team out there right now that's looking at that than you to come back and chat with Toby and Colin and the rest of the team on how we can be involved to help continue this amazing transition we're seeing. So thank you.
It would be bad if I didn't use my word of collaboration. I think that collaboration that's happened in this process has been unbelievable between the city and Grow Hayes and Heart of America, and we cannot sell those builders short. Those guys stepping up and doing what they did and what they were willing to do for this community, that kind of collaboration is who this community is. So I couldn't leave without saying that. Thank you.
You're right. Let's keep it going.
Will, and to answer your question, Sean, we'll be back in front of you sooner more than later. We've been working with staff, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that Toby and Colin and Jared and Jesse and Curtis and everybody, they bailed me out more than once, and they are a big part of why this can be successful, and I find them always willing to help and very open to different ideas and different approaches. So it's a great team.
You only
effort.
get 3 strikes, and you've used 1.
I was born with 2.
Doug, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, next item on the agenda, the Grove final plat. Jesse. It's the Doug, isn't it? Oh, the Doug, sorry, yeah, it's the Doug.
Good afternoon, Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. So I want to talk a little bit on these next couple agenda items, another exciting housing project actually, known as the Grove. I know we've been in front of you for different aspects of this particular development. This one being the consideration of the final plat. So the Grove property, it is located on the east side of Hayes. It is just east of Canterbury, south of 27th Street, and north of the Wellness Center, as you can see on the image on your screen. City of Hayes has received an application and has gone through the platting process to get to this point. The application does include the plat that you see on the screen here. The plat itself has gone through the Planning Commission. It's been through Utility Advisory Committee for comment and any changes, and city staff as well. I'm going to show you a little closer image here. So a little bit about the plat. The plat again does contain primarily residential lots. They are, as you can see, kind of in the southern section there, primarily smaller residential. There are some lots in here for what could be duplex or maybe townhome type dwellings, as well as a couple lots for multifamily or apartment dwellings as well. Beyond that, there's some property that will, when we talk about the next item, rezoning, we'll talk about a few more of those things, but there is a property here, the larger property here on the right, the larger lot there would be for a planned community center. And then there's some ag property, some walking trails associated with this as well. So here's kind of the overall concept that was presented by the developer. Again, you've probably seen this before. You can see the towards the west side of the plat, this would be the area, general area of the community center. Single family homes within this area, some duplexes, and some apartment housing here on the northwest corner of the development. This property right here, while it is part of the plat, there is a current homestead right there. That'll remain as it is for now. However, that owner is party to the plat. They agreed to be party to the plat and be incorporated in the platting process. And in the future, it's likely they could be incorporated into the plat for future development as well. The 2 blue areas you see aren't necessarily ponds. However, with any new residential or commercial development, there is stormwater retention, detention areas required. And so those would be the areas that contain those in some kind of manner. I also want to point out the planned multi-use path that would be built along with the development. Kind of starts here at the corner of 27th and Canterbury. Right now the plan is for it to come to the west, come down the street, come over here through easements, and then make its way back along the east side of the project, and eventually tie into the path that is currently located behind Hayes Medical Center, and then ties into the multi-use path. The city's on the east side multi-use path that connects all the way to the Hayes Rec Commission. So that again would be part of the development as this moves forward as well. As far as the plat itself, these are the options you have. The Planning Commission did unanimously approve the plat and did not have any other changes or considerations to it. However, you could make changes if you see fit. This would be the action requested. So any questions on the plat?
I move to approve resolution number 2023-019, accepting the Grove final plat.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Berry, second by Commissioner Cunningham. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, rezoning request for the Grove.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about the same property. Again, this is the Grove property you just approved the plat on. The bulk of the property is currently zoned C2 or general commercial, and the plan is to change it to residential general and a small portion of ag, and I'll show those in picture form here in just a minute. Again, same property here. So the current zoning map, as you can see in the map on the left, contains, you can see the red orangish box there outlining the property. The bulk of it that you see in the red is commercial or C2 general commercial district. There is some NC1, which is single family dwelling district as well on the property. And if you look at the map, the image there on your right, that's out of the comprehensive plan. That's our future land use map. And with any rezoning, we have to take the comprehensive plan into consideration. And it is entirely shown as light density residential there on the future land use map. The map on the left, again, is the current zoning of the property. So you can see now that we have the plat overlaid on that. The bulk of the property currently is zoned C2 general commercial, which obviously won't work for the planned development of the property. And then there's the NC1 single family, and in the very corner, there's an existing home there. It's actually zoned C2 commercial. On the right, you can see what the plan is to zone it to, the proposed planning. The area, which would incorporate the planned community center there, would remain C2 general commercial for that use. The bulk of the property would then become RG, residential general, which would allow the proposed uses of the single family, the duplexes, and the apartment housing. And then on the far east, it would move from C2 commercial to ag. That property is not slated for development. It will remain open, remain green space. The multi-use path will run through that area as well. The plan is to maintain and keep as many of those trees as possible, maybe meander the path through there. Some at the south end might be removed for the stormwater areas, but again, we'll work with the developer and keep as much of that intact as possible. With all zoning cases, we like to show you the proposed uses for the proposed zoning districts. What you see on the screen now are all the uses, what we call uses by right or permitted uses. So if rezoned to RG, these are all the uses then that would be allowed with no questions asked. You can see it's primarily schools, daycare centers, and housing types. Then we have what we call limited uses. So these would also be allowed. However, there are certain considerations or provisions required, maybe to do with parking, maybe to do with landscaping buffers or something between other uses. And then the third use is what we call uses by exception. If any of these uses were to be planned on the property, they would require a public hearing with the Board of Zoning Appeals and a notification process to surrounding business owners. So I'm not saying any of these are planned, but these are in the UDC and could be proposed uses if approved to residential general. For the portion of property I mentioned on the east side of the property, that would be rezoned to ag. Again, these are uses by right. It's a very limited list, a very short list of uses in the ag zoning area. Again, these are limited uses in ag zone property. So you still have residential. So not that they couldn't develop that area in ag. Again, the concept doesn't include that to happen, and then the uses by exception. So again, these would require a public hearing through the Board of Zoning Appeals. So with this one, the process with this one is spelled out in state statute. So these are the three specific options you have. You can approve it as submitted. You can send it back to the Planning Commission with specific basis for doing so, or you can overturn the Planning Commission's decision. The Planning Commission, as well as the plat, just like the plat, they did approve this one unanimously as well. So if you choose not to approve it, it would require 2/3 majority of the Planning Commission. City staff does support the request along with the Planning Commission, and this would be the action requested.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4038 to change the zoning from commercial general C2 and neighborhood conservation single family NC1 to residential general district RG and agricultural district AL for the Grove.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rear, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Jesse, kind of shifting gears a little bit. I know when we talked about building a new high school, there's supposed to be like 60% more traffic out there. When do you, like, once this would be built, I know it's sometime, I mean, how do you study that on how it will affect traffic up there? Or is that something that's ongoing?
Yeah, and it's my understanding that when the general traffic study was done, they incorporate undeveloped areas within the corridor study and plan for future build outs. So this one, if this ended up with 50 to 70 lots ish or so, again, that traffic is incorporated. There's no reason that the current traffic configuration wouldn't handle. I mean, this by all means is considered a relatively small development. It's not 500 or 600 lots. It's again in that 50 to 70 range. Of course, you have the multifamily as well, but see no reason whatsoever that even the current traffic configuration wouldn't handle this development and others like it. So.
Well, and there's ingress and egress from 27th Street as well. So that doesn't mean everything will come out to Canterbury.
And right, we do have, you can see on the north end,
Yeah.
not only is there the access for the apartment units here, but one of the streets would come out on 27th Street for people to either go east towards Commerce or come over to Canterbury. And then there is the primary access here as well as on the south end here.
If I live there, I'm using 27th Street. Just seems to make sense.
Right. So it does provide good flow through there, and I see people utilizing all three of those depending on which direction they're going. And again, this is kind of the rendering, but the now that the plat is approved, it kind of sets a stage for this concept to become reality. So
I think it's great.
You putting fish in those ponds?
we'll have to talk to Mr. Boyle.
Bring your
about that.
turtle over.
Okay, good deal.
Any other comments? Good. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Jesse.
All right,
Jesse.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Pro Shop Manager contract renewal. Do we need to get his sign up there first? Welcome.
Good evening, Jeff Boyle, Director of Parks. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the Pro Shop Manager contract. As we've talked about in the past, Jeremy's current contract ends December 31st of this year. Jeremy has operated the Pro Shop successfully since January 2018. Done a fantastic job out there. As far as the contract itself goes, Jeremy is requesting a $3,000 increase, which is shown in the contract that was in your packet. It's about a $250 a month increase. The $3,000 year-end bonus, that is still in there unchanged from previous contracts. We'd like to leave that in there. And we did add language actually charging Jeremy $3,000 for the use of rental carts on the new cart paths out there. We feel that's a good thing that all carts using the paths are paying, putting money towards those, keeping those paths up. Jeremy was okay with that and agreed to the terms there. Options, we ask you either approve the 3-year contract or direct staff otherwise. And this is the action requested.
I move we approve a 3-year contract from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2026 with Jeremy Coulter to manage the Fort Hays Municipal Golf Course Pro Shop for the amount of $2,750 a month and $3,000 a year, $3,000 year-end bonus option to be paid from the Golf Course General Fund budget.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Reuter. Everything I've heard, he's done a great job, and from what you've told us out there.
Yep, I agree.
Hear nothing but good stuff. We said it last week, but it's always good to hear it when there's people watching from he's doing an outstanding job.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. In favor of the motion, say aye. Passes 5-0. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, Hays Aquatic Park Slide refurbish. Awarded bid.
Again, Jeff Boyle, Director of Parks. I'm here this evening to talk about the need to refurbish the yellow slide at the Hays Aquatic Park. And I do apologize for the snow that's on the slides. every time I went down there, the shade was in the wrong place, and it just frustrated me. So I took some slides that we had earlier and used them. But so one of the things that we did with this yellow slide way back in the mid 2000s is we had the joints, the locations where the slide pieces come together. We had them spanned with a fiberglass material. It was kind of a going thing back then, but turned out to be not such a good thing as we moved on in life. And besides that, the color of the slide is really faded. We've got a local contractor that helps us every year, and I think the frustration levels with trying to get a buffed color out of this anymore is becoming a real problem. And so one of the things that show you a picture here, this is kind of the blotchy look we get when we're going in and working on the seams. That dark yellow streak that you see going up and down the slide here, that is a previous patch. So the paint color is really nice, whereas the rest of the slide, the other 20 years worth of wear and tear, don't look so nice. So we never can get it looking good in that manner. The other problem, as I mentioned with these span seams, is they flex in the wintertime. And what it does is it causes gel coat cracking. So what you see in this photo here is a crack that's going right down the seam of the slide where that span joint was put in. And the problem with this, while it looks small and it's like, that's not that big a deal, it is when you're going down it and you got your elbows on the slide or your head laying on the slide and you're hitting these fractures in the gel coat. So it's something that we have to deal with every year. What we wanted to do here was go ahead and we sent out requests for bids to have those span joints removed, professionally ground out and removed, and then have the slide completely repainted. They basically take the current gel coat down to the original base of fiberglass to create this etched surface so their paint will stick, and then they'll come back in and repaint the entire slide. We think in the long term, and part of this project also is, not only fix these gel coat areas, but we do have some chips that are located on like the very ends of the slides and those sort of things. Those little tiny things, we want to stop that right now before it gets any farther. And it's not a problem at this point, but if we continue letting it go, it could become a problem. So we did receive several bids. Back here. We received 5 bids. They were all reasonably close except number 5. I'm not sure what was going on there.
They really wanted it.
I think they did. I was not familiar with the experts in slides, so I did call every reference that he had listed, and they all came back good. It's a newer company. They basically owned a larger company, him and a friend of his, and they split and went 2 different directions. So he started a new company. That's why the name was not familiar with me, because I've dealt with slides a lot over the years, and it just kind of caught me off guard. Every reference came back excellent. In talking with this gentleman, he knows exactly what he's doing and how to get it done. I've asked some pretty difficult questions, and he had an answer right away to all of them. So I have no problem recommending him for this job. I will note, one of the things I did when I sent out the request for bid is I allowed folks to give an alternate one, which was to just replace the entire slide with a brand new one. A rumor had it that we might be able to get that done almost as cheap as painting. Well, you see at the bottom here, it's $182,800 to replace the slide. So it didn't turn out quite as I'd planned, but at least I threw the option out there, so we knew.
Repaint that a few times.
Yeah, we could. So these are your options. We do recommend the hiring the experts in slides for the job. Direct staff otherwise, or just do nothing. And this is the action requested.
I motion to approve the low bid for the experts in slides for the amount of $27,615 for painting and repairs to the yellow slide at the Hayes Aquatic Park to be paid from the pool sales tax reserve funds.
Motion by Commissioner Cunningham, second by Commissioner Barrick. Any other comments?
What is the warranty look like on the repairs?
It's a 2-year workmanship and materials warranty, except for areas that are submerged in water. So the very end of the slide, I'm going to guess 9 or 10 inches of the slide would not be under warranty. So if something happens to that last 9 or 10 inches that's in the water, that would not be covered at all. The rest of the slide has 2-year workmanship and materials.
And how long does this repair last us out?
That's a
Until
great
we have to
question. We
replace it.
talked about this last week, and I was guessing 10 years but I wasn't familiar with it. So I called the gentleman and asked him that. He said if you don't maintain things well, 5 years. If you maintain it properly, 10 years. So
What does that mean?
While it sounded like I knew what I was talking about when I said 10 years last week, I did want to double check with him. That's a great question also. So what I told him today on email was I'd like to sit down with him when he's in town and let him write down, or I write down, what he suggests we use on this new gel coat, how often we do it, when we do it, just get some good general information from him since he's been doing it for so long. Because, the slide that's there now, that's a factory original. We know what we're doing to it. It's worked, but this may be a different situation with being a re-gel coat. So I want to hear it. I want to get it written down from him. And
If it's $4,000 a year, it'd be expensive maintenance of the new thing that we were spending the same amount on the old thing.
right. That fixing all those gel coats that's half the cost, at least half the cost, if not more. So I'd like to see that number, the annual maintenance, come down.
Right.
But until I talk to him, I don't think it's rocket science on what needs done, but I just want to hear it out of his mouth. Don't use this chemical on it. Use this. Those sort of thing.
So Jeff, you said last week they would also be painting it white. Is that correct?
That's a good point as well. Yes, instead of yellow, we are requesting that the slide be white. It's the best color for long-term longevity of the slide. I know, Sandy. It takes a little bit of the bling out of it. I get that, and I agree with you. It does. But from a financial standpoint, I think it's the right thing to do.
So will they paint the bottom too? Cause
Bottom would be white as well. Yeah.
What about the current straight slide? Is that
It's still in good shape.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be buffed and waxed again. It's still in good shape. It's holding together well. That slide was replaced 6 or 7 years after the facility was opened. Okay. We replaced it. The old slide was flexing really bad midsummer. It would flex, and we get those joints wouldn't line up, and we were getting complaints about people hitting their heads on them and those sort of things. So we had to. We tried adjusting. We had the experts come in to adjust it, and we just got a hold of a new company and said, "Can you please put us a new slide in?" And have had no problems with it.
good?
So it's in good shape for now.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I just want to know, did you just go by hearsay, or did you actually go down the slide and catch your elbows?
I did not go. That was all hearsay. They wouldn't let me do that in my chief shirt and
No
jeans.
buttons, right?
Right.
all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
I'm a vote no against that. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
To get this done so we can go watch the real team. Anyway. Commissioner Reuter. And that ugly shirt, that red shirt you have on.
You said the real team, the Chiefs.
Maybe.
No, I don't have a whole lot going on. I just appreciate everybody what they did. We had a good meeting yesterday with Senator Moran down at the R9 Ranch, kind of give him an update on what we were looking at doing with the city's largest project is what I'm going to probably it's got to be the city's largest project we've ever had, and probably one of the, if not the most important project we've ever done. Mm-hmm. And really telling our story of what we need, why we need it, and what we're doing, and what we've been doing for the last 30 plus years. So that was a good trip to see, and it was nice to see the new trailer office down there that Chris is set up in. Looks kind of lonely, but he'll get some friends soon. So that's all I got.
So yeah, I want to echo a little of that I got the pleasure of joining in on that meeting. I apologize to Mayor Musil that he didn't get to go, but worked out to my advantage that I got to attend. And that was my first time to see the R9 in person. So it was great to see all the progress we've made out there and see it in its natural habitat. It really is a pretty sight if you haven't been out there. And then I wanted to share a little story that from today. I was at an event for Hayes Med, and they had brought in a chef from Texas, and he commented that he has been here multiple times to help with this venue, and how incredible that Hayes is, to the point that him and his wife have looked at if this would be somewhere that they would make home when they're done with their life in Texas. So I think that speaks huge for our city.
Give the name to Doug, please.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
We'll have a home ready.
Doug has set them up.
Yes. So that's it.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, I appreciate the fact that those of you that went to the R9, because it is a major project, and it's the most important thing now that the city can do as far as getting water for which we need for sustainability and growth. But it doesn't end there. That doesn't mean once we get it done that we won't have to be very big on conserving water, because if we're growing, we're always going to have that top of mind. Drought doesn't stop because we have an extra water source. So I was able to go to the Water Smart conference in Las Vegas last week. Got a lot of new information on how different cities, some that are our size and fit with sort of the things that we have to do, what they're doing for conservation, what larger cities are doing that have even tougher water situations than we do. So there were some really great ideas, and I'll be bringing some of those forth to the city staff. And so it was a really good meeting, and I think combined all of the things that the city already does with water conservation and adding the R9 project will bode well for our future.
It was very exciting that we had the opportunity to take Senator Moran down to the ranch yesterday. He happened to be out in western Kansas for a lot of different activities. And I've been kind of yelling for a while that we need to tell our story just a little better than we normally do. You know, we work on projects for so long, it's all under the table, and when we finally get it to the table, we put our 5 lines out there, and it's much better, I believe, to tell the whole story of how we got there. He was very gracious in coming out. He was excited to learn that we now had 6,800 acres for walk-in hunting. That's the 7th largest contiguous tract in the state for walk-in hunting. And it's interesting, the signs are posted. There was spots where they're sanded and fenced where you can park to go in and walk in. It was pretty impressive. He was very anxious to hear that we've reduced our legally available water rights down there by 30% to be sustainable. He really was surprised to learn that municipal use will consume much less water than irrigation, and that this is a long-term sustainable water supply. Hayes and Russell is the only area in the state of Kansas that does not have a sustainable water supply. That's really important to everybody. We have a $2 billion growing economy. We have 35,000 people out here that this water is going to take care of. It's critical for Hayes and for Russell's future survival. Russell has the opportunity to really grow an ethanol plant they have in Russell. Just unbelievable. But they want water. They want to make sure they can be guaranteed of water before they make a $385 million investment. So Russell's very anxious for this to happen as well. It's pretty simple. We have no other choice. And that's what we were able to share with Senator Moran yesterday.
Great stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, I couldn't go, but yeah, you didn't want me there anyway. But I did have the luxury with a few of you. We went to the Fort Hayes. Senator Moran was there and announced it was a $4 million grant for the nursing student or the nursing school at Fort Hayes. And just to hearing the numbers on how great Fort Hayes nursing is, and we're well above the state. Was the state average? Is that what he said?
State and national average.
State and national and stuff, and what Jerry Moran does to help us. I mean, that was huge. And you're talking about Kinsley. That walk-in hunting. We had a conversation. I believe it was Heather, their economic development director. And that was something that I really pointed out to her. We're not doing this to hurt Kinsley. This should actually help them with the walk-in hunting. Hopefully, it's a huge win for them. I mean, hunting should be huge down there, and and people in Kinsley shop in Hayes. So we want to continue to grow, and they continue to come to Hayes. So I just, Jerry Moran's a very busy man, and with what's going on in Washington right now, I talked to him a little bit after, and it's kind of crazy right now in Washington. And Doug, I think you said something. We're different in Hayes. We're not Washington D.C. We're not L.A. We're not Chicago. I don't know why, but we do it better here. And let's, I know everybody watches the news. I hear people in my store talk about, oh, did you see what's going on there? But it's not happening here, and let's keep it that way. So it's not saying that we're not insulated. It can happen here, but we do something right here. Let's continue doing that. So, we're adjourned.